Hello everyone, Lelaine Art Geek here. Welcome back to the channel. I am incredibly excited because in today's video I will be talking about my new comic that I'm working on with my boyfriend, and we are hoping for that comic to drop in 2025, hopefully early 2025. So I'm incredibly excited to talk about it, and also I want to reflect on my comic making journey because this isn't the first time I've started a comic. And unfortunately, in the past, I've failed a good amount of times, and I want to reflect on that and just talk a little bit more about my past comics and what I've learned from it very briefly. So this is more of like, oh, hey, I'm becoming a comic artist again, but also just reflecting on my past comics and learning from them, essentially. So yes, I hope you guys are comfortable, you have a snack or a drink, and let's go ahead and get started. So even though I've done comics in the past, ever since I've done my last comic, which I will talk about later in the video, it has been a while. I believe it's been almost 2 to 3 years since I've even drawn comics at all. So it has been a bit of a struggle to get back into it and get back into like the swing of things. But thankfully, Skillshare has helped me refresh my comic drawing skills and made it easier for me to relearn the basics of comics. Skillshare is the largest learning community for creatives that either want to get back into a certain skill, like me, or want to learn a brand new skill. There are tons of topics to learn no matter what creative field you're in, such as illustration, graphic design, animation, video editing, and music, all taught by industry experts who are passionate in their respective fields, so you're guaranteed to learn from the best. If you're wanting to learn how to achieve a better work-life balance for yourself or how to be more productive in general, Skillshare has lots of classes for that too. In fact, there are classes where members can learn how to cook and bake, so it's actually amazing. They ensure that no matter your skill level, there are classes that range from beginner to advanced, so anyone can learn a new skill in a matter of hours. I've found learning paths to be super helpful for my creative journey because they basically curate collections of sequential classes, so it's easier for members to learn specific skills. I started taking Ira Mark's class called Drawing Comics, A Beginner's Guide, because I felt that I really needed a refresher in comic making. He was really good at breaking down each comic element, such as speech bubbles and panel sizing, and explaining the importance of each one while demonstrating examples. It was really easy for me to follow each lesson, and I love how I can take my time and be at my own pace. This class and other comic-related classes have helped me with understanding comics again, and if you're aspiring to create your own comic one day, let Skillshare be a part of your journey too. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So take this opportunity to learn a new skill today, and thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Alright, so we can finally go ahead and start talking about our comic. I am so excited to finally talk about it officially. So this comic is called Stitches, and the story is written by my boyfriend Philip while I am doing the illustration for it. And the first issue will only be 30 pages, and we are hoping to release it by 2025. Hopefully early 2025 by MegaCon. So if any of you guys are going to MegaCon, please look forward to it. We are so excited to finally release it by then. Our main character, 24-year-old Charlie Souster, is mysteriously cursed with stitches all over his body, and one day he meets a witch named Stacy who is going to help him as long as he works in her magic shop. and together they fight ghouls and goblins, and they also fight to break the curse along the way. So it's a very adventurous story full of action and a little bit of horror and comedy. So if you are a fan of all of that, then I highly recommend checking out this comic when it's released. And don't worry if you are not going to MegaCon, we will also have a digital release of this as well. And we're also hoping to sell physical copies online. So yeah, this is a big deal, guys. I am incredibly excited. And honestly, this is such a big milestone for the both of us. So I really hope you guys will be there to support, and it means the world. So thank you. Right now, I am drawing a comic page with both Charlie and Stacy included, so you guys are able to see what they look like. And funny enough, throughout my social media, I've been drawing them a lot because, like I mentioned, I have been working on the comic for several months. So I've been drawing them a couple of times just for fun and also to get the feel of the characters and learn their personalities more, because it does help when you're, drawing the same characters over and over again for a comic. And that's something that I did have to learn again, is make the characters simple enough to be able to draw them over and over again while still conveying their personalities and delivering the story as it follows. As many of you know, I love character designing in general. I love doing character design, and so it was a little tough for me to make the characters as simple as possible while giving more personality. And I really had to simplify their characteristics. But hopefully that, because of the way I simplify their characters, that I can continue to be quick about drawing them while not losing the quality of the art as well. So yeah, that's kind of like my thought process. As a lover of character design, it was tough to simplify the details. So yeah, this was definitely a challenge, but I am so happy to draw these characters because it feels like they're my own, and I really hope you love them too. In the beginning of the video, I said that it has been 2 to 3 years since I've done any type of comic, but I want to take you all the way back to the beginning when I first did my full graphic novel-esque comic. By graphic novel, I mean literally working in a composition notebook. This was when I was either in elementary or early middle school, but this was when I was still a kid. I was young. And this comic is called Hershey Man. Hershey Man was based off of a plushie of the Hershey mascot given by my dad from Pennsylvania. And I based this character in so many different types of comics, and I had a whole series with this character. It was literally my own version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I had a lot of adventures with this character, and I drew a lot of comics too. Unfortunately, I don't have those comics anymore. I was only able to save the first issue, which is the most important issue in my opinion because it's the very first one. And I truly winged it with this comic. I barely did any planning. And of course, with the limited amount of pages that you get in a composition notebook, the fact that I was able to still tell a somewhat solid story was incredible. Obviously the story is bad, and obviously the way that the comic looks is bad, but it's because I was young, and you learn a lot when you're young, and it was definitely a game changer for me because I was having an amazing time telling stories with my own characters, even though this character was based off of an existing IP, but here we are. But yeah, I had an amazing time drawing Hershey Man, and that was truly the beginning of my comic journey. Now, continuing in middle school, I was still using composition notebooks as graphic novels, and I started drawing Natala. And Natala was a more, sophisticated version of my comic book or composition notebook, And I definitely planned this out a little bit more, and I made sure that the text was in the bubbles. I planned out my panels a little bit better, and also I was a little bit more consistent with my characters in general. Obviously, I wasn't perfect, but it was still there, and I had 4 main characters that I did keep consistent. It was actually one of those like comics where, you know how TV shows have like an A plot and a B plot? It was kind of run by like that, and I was very proud of the way I handled it because, like I mentioned, of my limited amount of pages in a composition notebook, I was able to get both storylines merged into one, and it was such a big accomplishment. I was so happy, and I have a special place in this comic has a special place in my heart because a lot of my characters now were either roughly inspired or entirely based off of these characters from Natala. And it means a lot to me too because this comic, the name of it, used to be my Instagram handle when I first started it, when Instagram started to become a thing in 2012. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just extremely proud of Natala and the growth of it, and these characters mean a lot to me. This was also when I had a lot of, I had a really creative mouth, and my language wasn't the most appropriate, but if you were in middle school, you can understand that I regret a lot of things that I've said, and it's obviously possible for you to change now, but back then I wasn't really proud of my choices and my choice of language. So when I was reading through this comic in particular, I was kind of cringing, if that makes any sense. And I was also just like groaning and being like, Lelaine, why did you say that? That's so inappropriate. Like that would not have slid like in today's world. So a lot of inappropriate language, but thankfully change happens and you learn from it. Honestly, I definitely learned from my comics and also just my overall growth and consistency of my characters, because that's kind of where the growth of my passion for character design kind of came from as well. Now for my next comic, I didn't start working on it until the beginning of college. So I was a freshman in college when I was first working on this comic, but this was important to me because this was my very first webcomic that I've ever worked on, and it was called Aeroactive. Some of you guys might recognize this name because I've been talking about it nonstop in my early days of Instagram, and I've been drawing its characters nonstop, as well as like another series that worked together with Aeroactive. But I was very ambitious with it because since it is my very first webcomic, I had to buy a new tablet for it, which was the Cintiq. The Wacom Cintiq Companion 2, I believe, is what it's called, and I used that to do my webcomic. And honestly, I was so proud. It felt so official finally working on a webcomic. I've been reading webcomics up to that point too, to really prepare myself for it. And you can still read this comic online now. It's on Tapas. I'm not sure if you guys remember Tapas or if you've never heard of it, but it's basically like Webtoon where you can just read comics and it would be like a scrolling format if you wanted it to be that way. So at least it reminded me of it. I don't know. But you can still read the comic over there now. And if you are curious, I will link it down below. And I learned a lot during this process. Unfortunately, I did have to abandon it because of the fact that I was still in college. I had a lot more priorities to focus on, so I did have to abandon it, unfortunately. But at some point, I do want to rework the story and bring it back somehow in the future. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like I feel that I planned out the story in a way where it was complex, but I was still able to follow along with it, and I kind of want to, tackle it again. So maybe in the future, who knows, but it was definitely ambitious because of the fact that it was my first webcomic, and I got pretty serious with it for a while. After abandoning Aeroactive and carrying on with my college days, I graduated in 2020, yay COVID, and about half a year later, that's when I started my next comic venture, which is Super Lollipop. And Super Lollipop is my first comic on Webtoon, so I've transitioned from Tapas to Webtoon, and also this would be my first attempt at a slice of life comic, which, by the way, I learned that I just don't vibe with the slice of life genre, at least like when I'm drawing it for myself. I think like it's definitely fun while you're like drawing it, but then in the long run, it's kind of just not for me. I feel that like I'm more a plot-driven, character-driven type of comic artist, which is why I think Stitches is a great comic for that, because it's obviously not slice of life, it's adventure, action, horror, and comedy. So I am a little bit more comfortable in that type of realm. But Super Lollipop was, I would say, an experiment, because I wanted to try something new, and it's okay that it's not the one for me. I tend to learn a lot of different things about myself when I'm making new comics for the first time. And so I think I'm like kind of exploring myself whenever I do these comics in general. So it's definitely one of those things where I'm figuring myself out and knowing what I like and don't like. And I think like as a comic artist, that's kind of important to know what you like and don't like, because if you're going to be committing to a project for years, I'm talking years, and I know people that have done the same type of comic for years, then you need to know what you like and don't like about a comic. And I think I figured myself out when I made Super Lollipop. It was fun. It was definitely fun. And a lot of people really enjoyed that type of content because it was more so like explaining my type of life with my own persona. But in the end, it wasn't the right format for me, even though I had a good time, and I just decided to stay away from it as well, which, yes, I did abandon Super Lollipop, of course, but I wanted to pursue something else, and that's where I come in now with Stitches. And so I would consider this to be another attempt with comics, but I have a really good feeling about this one. And I say that because I think that as an artist, I've changed. I've changed my mental state. I've changed my skill set. Like I think like for the better, by the way, like all of this for the better. And I think that my motivation has changed as well for doing comics. This is one of those types of art that I really wanted to get back into, but I just didn't know how, I didn't know when, and I just didn't know where, I guess. Like, I just had a lot of questions to myself whenever I even think about getting back into comics. And as an artist, you just have so many other different passions that you want to explore, and sometimes you abandon other things. And especially if you're a comic artist, I feel that one of us has always tried to do something new, but then another thing gets in the way and we just have to abandon it. And I just didn't want that anymore. I feel that by doing this comic, it will help me practice not abandoning projects, and just in the fear of like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough, or oh, I think that I won't be able to be passionate about this anymore in the future, and that just tends to be the culprit. But with working on this comic, I've learned, and I'm slowly building that passion again. I'm having a really good time making this comic, but it's just the consistency of it in the beginning, of course, is what has driven me away from it for a little bit. But now I feel like I'm in a state where I can get back into it again and have a consistent schedule for myself, which is something that I have to work on even to this day. I'm a little embarrassed by it because I know I have a lot of art friends who keep consistent schedules. not me, unfortunately, but don't worry, I'm slowly working on it. You need to have a consistent schedule when you're making comics especially. So yes, I hope you enjoyed my comic journey talk, and I hope you are also excited for Stitches. Like I mentioned, it is going to be coming out in 2025, so please look forward to that. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video and gotten something out of it, hopefully. And if you like this channel and the content that I make on this channel, give me a subscribe. It would mean the world to me. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you next time.